delighted to say that joining us for our opposition view to look ahead to that game is former West Ham United FA Cup winner and ex-Arsenal employee as well, Pat Holland. Pat, it's absolutely brilliant to have you with us. It's been 46 years since the cup final win for you with the Hammers, 30 years since your last appearance for the club. How do you look back on all of that now?
Yeah, well, obviously with great memories. A lot of injuries during my career, which was disappointing. Highs and lows. I mean, I played in the 75 Cup final and the 76 Cup Winners' Cup final. Missed the 80 through injury, which was quite sad. I was disappointed. Obviously, great for the lads that played. But when you're sitting there and you're watching it and don't feel part of it, it's very, very difficult. You ask any player. They want to be out there and they want to be performing. So, but when you weigh it all up, no, the tremendous time at West Ham.
Yeah, the sort of Jimmy Greaves in the World Cup finals sort of feeling. Did it make it a little bit easier to take missing out on that 81 because you'd already had the experience, or were you just as cut up as you would have ever been?
No, absolutely cut up. I'd missed the. We played Aston Villa. And John dropped me for that game and brought in Jeff Pike. And then he brought me back for the semi-final against Everton. I'm not sure whether I played a couple of weeks before. I'm not sure. But he had this way of bringing me back for important games. And so they were a good Everton side at the time. I think we were still in second division, weren't we, Will? And so I played wide right, and then with about 15 minutes to go, Andy King, who I got to know really well afterwards, because he scouted quite a bit, Andy, caught me with a bad tackle. And Stuart Pearson had already gone off injured with about 15, 20 to go. So I couldn't go off. I had to stay on because you only had the one subs in. Yeah. And I was in agony. My ankle blew up like you wouldn't believe. It was quite funny, really. We had a chap who's been in the news quite a bit recently, a chap called Jack Leslie, who was a black player in the 30s and 40s, I believe. Anyway, Jack came.
I do, yeah.
He was a wonderful man. He came as the boot man, Jack. He was a grey-haired old chap, lovely, lovely fella. And for some reason, he took a shine to me. I think it was because I was playing wide right in the reserves at the time, and Jack was a winger for Plymouth Argyle. I'm going to have to make that sure. I'm sure it is. I'm right. And should have played for England, they tell me. Anyway, Jack suggested that I go down to Southend because my ankle was so swollen and go in the sea. He said, and that'll reduce the swelling, Patsy. So I went, all right, Jack. So I've driven all the way to Southend. It was a horrible day. It was freezing. So I've rolled my trousers up and I've gone in, and also I've gone wallop straight over. All my clothes on the lot. So then see Jack the next day. How'd it go, Patsy? Not so good, Jack. Not so good.
Yeah, I say you talk about Jack. He played for Crystal Palace for a long time as well, I think, a while before.
Yeah. He was a wonderful man, and all the boys loved him. He was just, he had to be well into his 70s then. And like, when you think, you see him in the old boot room and they'd have the old stuff, knocking the studs in and stuff like that. But, a very, very popular man amongst the boys.
Yeah, I know he was in the news recently. You're right. I remember reading some bits and pieces about him. But Pat, look, in your after you retired from playing, I am interested. Just doing my research as I always do earlier on. You played in Hawaii for a bit, but the reason we've got you on tonight, as well as obviously want to hear about your time at the club, which is great. You did used to work for the Arsenal. With West Ham, we've got them at home Sunday, 21st of March, 3:00 kickoff, London Stadium this weekend. It's a huge game, looking to bounce back after the Manchester United defeat. But you did work for Arsenal for quite some time. What can you tell us about your role there and how involved you were at the club?
What it was, once I packed in playing, I went into coaching straight away. I had numerous jobs. I was at Leyton Orient, Queen's Park Rangers, went back to the O's and then on to Tottenham. But during that time, a good friend of mine was, first of all, was Youth Development Officer, Steve Rowley, who's a massive West Ham supporter. I shouldn't tell everyone that, being an Arsenal man. And then when I lost my job, my job, I'm trying to think where I was at the time. I might have even been at Tottenham, and lost my job there. And Steve brought me onto the scouting side of it for Arsenal. I was doing a bit of part-time work there. I was working in a school in Watford for about 3 years. And then he phoned me up one day and said, look, Pat, I want to take you on full-time. And it was great, just to get out and be back in the environment that I enjoy. So I worked with Steve there for nigh on 9 years, I think.
What sort of era was this, Pat? Just sort of roughly years-wise?
Well, only recently. So you're looking at 2000, 2010. So I was doing a bit of part-time scouting, and then I went there full-time around about 2012, around about that time. So 8 years of doing senior scouting for Arsenal.
Great stuff.
Pat, moving on to sort of West Ham this season. Obviously, we've almost shocked everyone in terms of we're into the season with everyone expecting us to be in a relegation battle, and instead we're battling for the top four. What have you made of the transformation that West Ham are currently experiencing under David Moyes at London Stadium?
Yeah, I'll be straight with you. I haven't seen a lot of them. I watch snippets of football now, and that's not because it's West Ham. It's most sides. I watch it for about 10. I think I'll join the general public. If you've got Sky and BT Sport, you keep flicking around. But the way I've looked at them at the moment, they're very, very well organised. I mean, they've got whether it uses a back four or a back five. I think the ones that really stand out for me in their success would be the holding two players. Is it Souček, the lad?
Souček and Rice, yeah.
Yeah, Declan Rice, who's come on a ton. I mean, I watched Rice as a kid at 17 playing for Chelsea, and I weren't sure about him. He played centre. Yeah, I didn't think he was dominant enough in the air, and his pace worried me. And I always felt his best position would be sitting in front of the back four. And when he first got into the side at West Ham, if I'm right or wrong, he did play as a centre half in a three with the Argentine manager.
Yeah, he played under Pellegrini. He sort of dotted around a bit, didn't he? Yeah,
exactly. And then they put him in front of the back four or whatever they were playing at the time. And because he's tailor-made, he's very good at what he does for me, And but those two for me are the ones that are a big factor in the development of the side, because they give them stability. Rice ain't going to go flying about all over the pitch. And the other lad, I'll see his debut. I think he played against Brighton. I was there doing a match report on Brighton that day. And he impressed me with his movement into the box. So again, good size, good physicality. So I think that's one of the main reasons for me. Keeper obviously has done excellent. Antonio up front is a handful. And they've got boys playing around Antonio that can create. They can be creative. Bowen, the lad from Brentford. I'm not so sure. I don't know enough about the other lad. Is he a Spaniard, the other boy?
Yeah, Fornals. Yeah, Pablo Fornals.
Yeah, again, when I talk to my mates, they go, he's a very creative player. So they've got a good balance, and he's done really well with them.
Pat, looking at the Arsenal, flicking the switch back to the Arsenal, what have you made of them this season and sort of under Arteta really since he's come in? What have you made of the club in this last sort of 18 months?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. They, I always felt when I was there, I used to go in. Oh, I've lost you. You're back. Yeah. I would go into the chief scouts room, Steve Rowley. We'd sit there and have a cup of tea. And now and again, Wenger would walk in, Arsene Wenger, shut the door, and that meant he wanted to talk football. And I felt one of the things the Arsenal always lacked was a holding midfield player. So their attacking flair was fantastic. They could get forward and be creative. But for me, always vulnerable on the counter-attack, especially down the sides. And I made the point of saying to him, do we need a holding midfield player? Sorry, lads, something's come up on my screen. I'll just knock that one on. Right. It's on. We're fine. So I think at the moment, he's looking at the side and he's trying to get some sort of stability in the side at the moment. They've got creative players, we know that. And the youngsters have come in, have done really well, really well. When you consider, I think Smith Rowe would only be 20, Saka would be 19, 20. The boy from Real Madrid, I don't know enough about, I'll be honest with you, but he's only a youngster. So they've got some very talented young players. I still think They need that stability of a good back four. I mean, I went and watched Tierney play on 2 occasions, and I thought he was a good young player. And I think he'll be the next captain of Arsenal, personally. But I still think Arteta's got work to do there. I'm not sure if they're the finished article at the moment.
Pat, how much involvement did you have, or what involvement, if any, did you have with some of the young guys who are coming through at Arsenal at the moment?
None at all. None at all. Because I had a spell when I coached there. At the side I coached, I was only there for 3 months. And the boys that come through that group would have been Alex Iwobi, who's at Everton.
Oh, yeah.
Who's the lad at Newcastle?
Willock.
Joe Willock?
No. He come from the Arsenal and he went to Newcastle, holding midfield player. Oh, Isaac Hayden.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right.
Isaac Hayden was in that side. Alex Iwobi was in that side. They were the 2 that come through in the group that I was with for about three or 4 months. But other than that, all I would be doing really would be out looking for talent for Arsenal. They give me the job of looking at under 23 talent, which is quite interesting because I looked at some really good players and turned down. You'd be quite shocked at the boys I'll name you, and I went, I'm not sure about. But it's quite. Where shall I start? Dele Alli.
So these are players you said you weren't sure about.
Oh, well, in my mind, I was sure of that. Yeah.
All right, go on, yeah.
But obviously, Dele Alli, I see on numerous occasions, he was in the under 21s in, and MK Dons only, they played friendly games. They were in the Hertfordshire Cup and stuff like that. Sometimes I'd be the only person there watching him, scout-wise, and I just didn't think he had enough. He played as a holding midfield player, and I wasn't sure whether he had enough mobility or the will to be a player that was going to get close to people and close people down. I always felt he had to be an advanced midfield player. So that's the reason I think. Jack Grealish, I was never sure about. I felt wonderfully talented player, but went down too easily. I think the best players stay on their feet and get on with it. Obviously, he's done fantastically well, but I think you've still got to see the best of him and see if he can become maybe more simplistic in his game to be a top player. And then the last one I throw at you is Maddison, who I watched at Colchester on a lousy, rainy day at the training ground. And he had a little headband on. I looked at him, talented. And I said to the chief scout, Steve Rowley, look, we need to look at this kid. He's got something. I'm not sure if he's got enough to be a top player in terms of all-round game. And then he went to Norwich. And in fact, we followed him up right the way through his career. So we had opportunities of going for him, but there was still that slight doubt about him. And now, of course, they're lining up. But these are in scouting, you know. I think at the time, when you're working for a real top club, if it was the Arsenal at that stage they weren't at their best, but they were still looking for the best talent. And unfortunately, when you're at a club like that, sometimes you can be too critical of young players. I always said to Steve, now and again, we need to have a gamble up. In other words, and a gamble up these days is £1 million. It's not like 100,000; it's £1 million. You have to take into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess that we have Tony Carr comes on the podcast quite a lot, and he was obviously responsible for bringing through a load of young players at West Ham, that golden generation, so to speak. But you know, there's obviously a few that got through the net. Chelsea let Declan Rice go at 14, and they're looking at, you know, there's reports suggesting they want to pay £100 million to bring him back now. So it's you just never know at that level, I guess. Look, Pat, it's been great to have you with us. Just looking ahead then to the game at London Stadium on Sunday, how do you see that sort of playing out?
Well, for me, if West Ham do it right, I think they could win the game. You know, I was going to say with a crowd behind them, but obviously they've been a strange side whenever I played against the Arsenal. I think away from home we didn't have a great track record against them. At home, it was half and half, really. We'd sometimes win and sometimes we could lose them as well. So I don't think our track record over the seasons has been fantastic. But I just think at the moment, West Ham on a real run. And I think Arsenal would be quite fearful of them. You know, and I think up front, if he's fit, Antonio's a handful for anybody. They're nice and solid at the back now. If they can get those little opportunities, it'd be interesting if he sits back like he did against Man United, or he thinks, well, let's go for it, because they'll be frail. Arsenal, they've got their problems at the back as well. So I want to go for a West Ham win.
A West Ham win. We get a score prediction out of you there, Pat.
2-1.
2-1 to West Ham. Excellent stuff. James, Tom, before we let Pat go, what are you saying? James, I'll throw to you first. What's your score for West Ham Arsenal Sunday?
Yeah, I agree with Pat. I think Arsenal will probably be very cautious of West Ham, given the form that we're in, and the way we've been playing at home in particular this season. We've been very solid in Stratford. So I'm going to go. Pat's already gone 2-1. I'll go 3-1 West Ham.
3-1 to West Ham. I'm going to err on the side of caution a little bit, just for a change. I think Arsenal will be buoyed by their performance against Tottenham, but I think we'll have enough to not lose. So I'm going to go 1-1. Tom, over to you before we say goodbye to Pat.
Yeah, you've just nicked my result, Will. So I'll go 2-2. I think it'll be a good game, but I just feel like you said, they're in a bit of form now, and I think they might just haul us back in, but we'll take the lead.
Absolutely. Well, Pat, look, it's been absolutely brilliant having you with us. It's not often on this program we get to welcome people who've won an FA Cup with West Ham. So it's brilliant to have you on, especially as you worked at Arsenal as well. What's your sort of the player or the biggest name or whatever that you had something to do with at Arsenal? Are you sort of most proud of, your proudest achievement, if you will?
I'd rather go back to when I coached at Tottenham.
Go on.
And I'll give you a list if you want. No, I don't think it's. I think it's who you work with. I think basically, I think the players they're the ones who've got to come through. So the boys I work with, I'll give you 4 quickly. Would be Sol Campbell, Ledley King, Nicky Barmby, James O'Hara, all come through. There's a list of them. You know that I was fortunate. Yeah. Peter Crouch. To have something to do with those boys in their career, which is it's great. And when you see them, there's always smiles and it's lovely. So that's the main thing. You'd speak to Tony Carr about it. It's just being part of it. Absolutely.
Well, Pat, it's brilliant to have you on. First time on the show. It's wonderful to
Thank you.
Definitely hope to have you on again later in the season, but especially as you're going to go for 2-1 wins to West Ham when they play Arsenal. That was West Ham FA Cup winning star, former scout Arsenal, Pat Holland. But